Hey everybody! Welcome to another episode of Timeout with Tackle What's Next, where we speak with athletes and executives about how sport has changed the course of their lives and the lessons they've learned in life outside of the game. I am Danielle Berman. I am the founder and CEO of Tackle What's Next, where we work to change the narrative around life after sports. Thank you so much for taking a time out with us tonight. We are talking to Andre Fluellen today on Timeout. And Andre is the co-founder of Beyond the Game Network. Beyond the Game's mission is to empower people to control their brand and their future. They partner with sports, media, and tech growth companies to help them win. And they provide opportunities to learn from the best professionals on how to start a business or invest in a professional venture capital firm. Andre played 8 years in the NFL as a defensive tackle for the Lions, the Bills, and the Dolphins. He's also a graduate of the NFL's Broadcaster Bootcamp, and he has appeared as a football analyst on the NFL Network. And on top of all of that, he is a motivational speaker, and he addresses thousands across the country annually. And he has also spoken at a couple of Tackle What's Next events as well. And we are so grateful for him, his support, and for being here tonight. So I see he's here. I'm going to go ahead and bring him up on the screen here and see if we can't get this conversation going. So thanks everybody for tuning in. There we go. Hey, Andre.
Hey there. Let me turn on some brightness. Hold on.
How's it going?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well. I know you've been traveling all over the place, so we really appreciate your time and jumping on this great interview here. So everything going smoothly with Beyond the Game? Tell us what you guys are up to.
Everything is going smoothly. We have been super busy, doing a lot of traveling. I've been doing a lot of speaking myself, so everything is just going great.
Awesome. Well, what we want to do here on Timeout is get your full journey, and we want to start way at the very beginning of the story of your sports career. So if you remember the first time you played a sport, what sport that was, tell us what that was like, and how did you find your way to football?
Oh, all right. So this brings back some good memories. So the first sport, I would say, if I thought I was going to go pro in anything, it would have been bowling. Believe it or not. I grew up in a league bowler ever since I could remember. That is the first sport I ever remember doing.
Wow, I love it.
Saturday league bowling. And I'm not so sure if it was more so that my parents saw something in me as a bowler or they really just wanted to get me out the house for a couple hours. So not really sure, but yeah, bowling is where it started.
I love that. I think that's so great. I am a horrible bowler, so I appreciate people that can actually bowl without getting a gutter ball every time. But how did you find your way to football? Do you play a lot of different sports? Clearly bowling to football, there had to be a little bit in between there, but tell us how football became the number one focus.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, growing up, I grew up, and I like to say it like that. I used to shop at a special section for youngsters at the department store, and it was called the Husky section, if anybody remembers that growing up. Okay, so I was a big kid growing up. I was the fat kid. And so the fat kid growing up didn't really do any other sports other than bowling. I did play a little bit of like rec basketball because my parents made me play. But yeah, so sports wasn't really my thing. My thing realistically was just eating and playing video games, and that was it. And so but it wasn't until my freshman year in high school. I have an older brother who was a senior. I was a freshman in high school, and my brother actually made me play football. That's how I got started. I'll never forget. It was a football tryouts day, all right? And I knew my brother was gonna try to make me play, so I tried to get home as fast as I could. So I'm trying to leave the school, and before I could get out of the school, my brother stops me, and he says, "Hey man, where you going?" I said, "I'm going home." He said, "Why are you going home?" I said, "Because people go home after school." "Come on, man." And he was like, "Dude, we got tryouts today." And I was like, and I tried to, I was just a little bit bigger than my brother. I said, I'm not playing football. Stuck my chest up, and literally he slammed my head against my locker. He was like, "You are playing football, got it?" And even though I was bigger than my brother, man, I felt about that big.
Yeah, you were like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I was like, okay, yes, sir. So that's how I got started playing football.
Wow. Well, I love it. A little bit of peer pressure, but hey, it got you in there. And clearly you were a good fit and a natural talent at the sport. So I want to know what impact did playing sports in general, whether it's football, bowling, whatever, what impact did that make on your life and who you are today? How would you kind of define that impact?
All right, so there are two ways to look at it, and I'll go both ways for I'll try to be quick, but like the first thing is obviously as an athlete, like you just understand, I'm an entrepreneur now, right? And so you understand like being able to defeat adversity, like that's like built into an athlete. Being able to adjust on the fly, that's built into an athlete. Like, and all these are all the same things that make a good entrepreneur. But also, there's some things that like were kind of messed up that we learned as athletes too that a lot of us don't really talk about. Like we don't really talk about like how almost ridiculous it is to run full speed head first against somebody else. Like it's kind of crazy, right? We don't talk about how you're consistently and always called soft if you don't do something. That's kind of messed up too. We don't talk about how like in terms of competition, like we're not always taught to win. We're always taught to beat other people. Right? There's a difference. There's a difference between winning. Winning is something that I do for myself, but beating is something that I do to you. All right.
Yeah.
And so like these are some things that we've taught that were good and bad. And so the good ones, they've helped me as an entrepreneur in life. But also the bad ones are things that I had to recognize and get over that I never even knew were there until I kind of started doing some self-discovery.
I really appreciate you saying that because I think when people talk about the impact that something like playing sports has made on them, everyone kind of thinks like, oh, it's taught me all these character traits and life lessons. But I think in every journey, there's things you have to unlearn or realize that it's not going to serve you anymore. So I appreciate you sharing that because I know there's a lot of people that are leaving their sport and going, well, what do I do now? And how do I take what I've learned and bring it into that next chapter? And so I think you just gave a great piece of advice is maybe not everything needs to move into that next chapter. Kind of focus on the good things and maybe try to change those bad stereotypes or bad lessons that you've learned. And so I want to hear from you, as you were playing in the NFL, you're playing professionally. Is there anything that you were trying to do, thinking about in terms of your next chapter? Or was it something that you were like, hey, I got to focus on right here, right now to stay relevant, and I'll figure that out when I get there? How did that transition approach to you?
Yeah, that was hard because I'll tell you, I've always thought about the next step, but also I'm a very single focused mind. Sorry. I'm a very single focused person. I can't really do a lot of things at once. And I actually saw some of my teammates who, like, the way I looked at it, like, look, if you've made 20, 30, $40 million, you made a whole bunch of money, like you can hire a team to do other stuff, right? Yeah. But if you're making league minimum and you're trying to stay on the team, like, dude, you got to kind of like be there, right?
Yeah.
And so while I was there, even though I had thoughts, I really kind of put all my mental focus into playing sports because I knew that sports would be a stepping stone into something else later. So, I know it sounds weird that I didn't really, I had a plan B in the back of my mind, but I really didn't have a plan B because I knew if I didn't execute plan A, then plan B just wouldn't work anyway. So I was more focused on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a real thing that a lot of people deal with is trying to stay in where you are and not get distracted by the future. And so I want to know, as you got towards kind of the end of your playing days, did you realize that it was coming? Did you start to think about it maybe towards year 7, year 8? Okay, maybe I need to start putting that plan B, plan C together. Or was it really just something that you said, you know what, I want to take some time, figure out what I'm going to do? And, how did you take that time or kind of approach it as you were reaching the end of your career?
Well, as I was going towards the end of my career, like, I when I was done, I was done, and I kind of knew I was done, even though I wanted to play, but I had an injury. That was my last play, and it wasn't a terrible injury, but I just never got signed again. I was 30 years old, kind of the end of the career, once you get hurt, that's kind of it. So anyway, so I've always had the mentality that I'm always where I'm supposed to be. Okay. And so even when I got done playing, people don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but I got my Series 7 and 66 securities license to be a stockbroker and, an investment advisor. Yeah. And I did that because I was working with an investment advisor, and I thought it was just a way that I could make a lot of money. Like to be 100% honest, that was the only reason I went in that path, and I hated it. like absolutely despised doing that. And some things happened where I had to get out of that industry anyway. And so there was a journey that I took. It was a journey that I didn't know exactly where the end of the river was going to take me. But I just, even along the journey, when I went over the rapids and, I had to dodge alligators and stuff like that, I just understand that part of the journey is actually what makes you the person that you are today. That's what made the person I am today. One of my favorite songs that's ever been written is a song called "Row, Row, Row Your Boat." And if you understand really what that song really means, like it means something really special. So that's why I always tell athletes, like, if you have a plan B, great. If you don't, sometimes you just kind of have to go with the flow, and you'll find Beyond the Game Network, and you'll find, being a business advisor, and you'll find investments. Like you'll find these things if you kind of just go with the flow with who you are.
Yeah, I love that you say go with the flow with who you are too, because I think that's one of the things it sounds like you were doing while you were playing was kind of figuring out what you were interested in, like maybe what something could be. I saw John is here. Hi, John Register. And he asked the same thing. Well, how do you prep for that transition while you're still playing? And I think you described it so well. Focus on what you're doing, but start to just think, who am I? Like, what might I want to just explore when I'm done? Because I do think the who you are part takes a long time. So if you can start to think about that while you still have your day job of playing sports, then when that day starts to wrap up and you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, you at least can go, hey, all right, now I can kind of explore these things that I've carved out, that these are interests of mine. So I love that. And I want to talk now a little bit about the work you're doing. So tell us about Beyond the Game Network. How did that come to be? Was it something that you always wanted to create after getting your Series 7? Or tell us a little bit about how you got there.
So I know I just said, like, I didn't have much of a plan B when I was playing. So let me backtrack, okay? All right. So B stands for backtracking, all right? So anyway, so when I was playing, though, one day, my locker was right next to Calvin Johnson's, okay? And so Calvin Johnson, he had some special shower shoes that Andre Fluellen didn't have, okay? So he was Megatron, I'm Andre Fluellen. He's a $100 million man. I'm trying to stay on the field, man. So anyway, every day I used to steal Calvin's shower shoes because Calvin's shower shoes were just different than Andre's shower shoes. So every day, man, he would be arguing with me. He would say, "Flu, you got to stop taking my shower shoes." I'm like, "Dude, they just make yours so much better." I was like, "Try to get me a pair." He says, "No." So we're going back and forth. And then on the other side of my locker is Indomitian Sue. So one day I'm going back and forth with Calvin once again. We're having a friendly argument, but it's an argument nonetheless. And Sue is just laughing his head off. And then it just dawned on me that I'm having a argument about shower shoes with one of the most influential people on the planet. And then I looked around and I said, hold on, there's 53 of the most influential people in the city, and all we do together is play a game. And we also play a game for a team that could cut you at any moment, as I was cut by the Lions 10 times. Okay, so so I thought about that, and I was like, well, what if I just mobilize everybody to just start doing stuff together as a team off the field? And so that's really where Beyond the Game was conceived. That was a conception. But like I said before, I tried to kind of do that, but I realized, man, once you're playing, you got to be focused on the game, and I get that. And I had to do that myself. So that was the conception. And then what I realized post-career was that, even though we had this influence, we just didn't have the expertise. So I was like, man, let me find some people with expertise that don't really have much influence. And those are our business partners. All right. Yeah. And so we kind of merged the two together so that the business executives of our group could get the influence that we have, and we can get the experience that they have. And it just makes this wonderful collection of people.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you took this group around you and you said, hey, I know these guys, I play with them every day, I'm here with them. We could be doing more than just playing football. We have all these opportunities to be making an impact or learning and educating ourselves. And so I want to know, tell us a little bit about Beyond the Game and what you guys are doing today. So now you guys have a lot of different educational programs for the athletes you work with. You guys are investing and teaching people how to, build venture capital, work in the venture capital space. So catch us up with currently what Beyond the Game Network does and who you guys work with.
Yeah, so right now, it's pretty awesome that we've man, we've invested in 17, 18 now companies. And a lot of what we do is it's pretty significant because we do a lot of our companies that we've invested in have either female or underrepresented founders. And that's a big part of our, kind of our thesis. We don't really invest in underrepresented companies because they are that. We invest in companies that are good and they just happen to be underrepresented. So that's like a plus. Like we're not charity, and so also, we've had events and we do, and so right now we're doing, working on some events for the Super Bowl next year. We're working on doing some more education. We're really heavy into the Web3 and Web3 space. So there's just a lot of awesome things that because of our network of executives, that our athletes have been plugged into stuff that we just didn't know. We wouldn't have known about, the whole Web3 thing and the whole metaverse thing. Like there's so many cool points that we've touched that literally 99% of the population don't even know exist. And so it's just, that's the power of the group. That's the power of the collective group, is not so much of making income, but just really just getting that knowledge, because knowledge will lead to income every time.
No, I really enjoy what you're talking about, because I 100% think that the things you guys are doing, like you said, you're making an impact. It's not charity, but you actually are creating revenue. You're creating these incredible businesses. These businesses are solving problems. And by the way, they're also giving people opportunities that maybe wouldn't have had a shot in a traditional setup 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So I really love that. And I want to kind of pivot back to the athletes that you guys work with and the work that you do too as a speaker. And I want to know, as a motivational speaker too, what do you discuss in your speeches? What do people really resonate with? What are the takeaways that you're trying to inspire other people as you're going to talk to them, even if they're just the people in your group and you're Beyond the Game Network, as you motivate them with the work you guys do?
Well, typically I charge $5,000 to $10,000 for this type of information that I'm going to give you right now. So I'll be expecting all the people on the chat to send a check to Andre Fluellen. You can send it through Instagram Messenger if you want to. I accept PayPal. I accept Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the above as well. But seriously, what I typically talk about is my goal for everybody that I come across is there are some ways to make. It's going to sound weird, but I always talk about how to make life easy. Okay. And so when I say the word easy, a lot of times when we say certain things, we don't really define our terms. So when I say easy, please understand that when I say easy, I mean something that's in flow with the automatic. Remember I told you about row your boat before?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by easy. So if me and you are in a canoe, we're rowing with the stream, rowing is going to seem easy. Now, if we have to turn around and say, hey, we got to go back home, we got to turn around and go upstream, well, then that's going to be what's called hard, or against what's automatic. And so there are ways, there are laws, there are ways of thinking, there are ways of going about business that can make life literally easy if you understand the laws behind them. And that's all the way what I talk about. I'm only giving you an overview, so this one only costs about $500. I'm only giving you about 10% of what I usually talk about. But realistically, though, there are some laws that I have learned through my post-career life that I've implemented, and my life has changed dramatically because of the mental things that I've implemented in my own life. Not even so much the physical things, but the mental techniques and regiment that I do. It's literally changed my life, and I've seen it change other people's lives as well.
All right. Well, not everybody that's listening is going to have to bring Andre into their company or into their community to hear all these good laws, because I'm curious. So that's a good plug for some of the stuff that you guys do. But I love that you talked about the mental side of things, because I do think that's one of the challenges when you're talking about taking your career as an athlete and transitioning out into something else. So I want to know, right, if an athlete's thinking about they're reaching the end of their career, maybe they already are at it, and they're like, what do I do? Where do I go? Where do I start? Do you have any advice for them around how to get started, how to prepare, anything that you wish you would have done, that you did, that you really felt set you up for success, that you'd like to pass on to those going through that right now?
Okay, so I think one time I gave one of the worst speeches in the history of any NFL club that's ever been given. All right, so check this out.
Okay.
Going to the NFL club one day, and they asked me to speak to everybody. I said, all right, guys, I'm just going to let you know that that the rate of athletes going bankrupt post-career within 3 to 5 years is about 70%. We all know that stat. I've heard it. It's around that. Okay. So I basically said, so there's 100 guys in here. So I said, 70 of you are going to go broke.
Mm.
Now I said pretty much 70, that's just the numbers, okay? So it's going to happen to you. All right, so 70 of you. So, but what they tell you is, other people tell you that if you're one of those 70, you have absolutely failed. And so what I come in here to tell you is that if you're one of those 70, let's get started.
Mm.
Everybody else is telling you that you've missed the mark if you're one of those 70. I promise you, 70% of anybody who does the same thing for almost their whole life and has that taken from them, 70% of anybody will go broke. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's just be straight. So I've kind of changed it from saying, and I wish I had heard this, okay, when I was in, because I used to always think like, dude, if I'm one of those 30, I'm successful, but if I'm one of those 70, I'm just like, I didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just realizing, like, we're always trying to speak to the 30, but it's the 70 that really need it.
Yes.
And so that's what I wish I would have heard, because that would have given me the confidence to go out there and try what I love to do. Not trying to get my Series 766 and make more money and hate what I was doing, right? But finding myself, even if it took me, which happened to me, even if it took me losing almost everything through things getting stolen from me and some people that I trusted stolen from me, whole nother story. But all of that, it built me, and I'm back, baby. I've been back for a while now, so I'm good. So Flu is good now, okay? Like, let's not get it twisted. Flu is good now, but he wasn't for a second. But it took all of that, and I was one of those 70%ers for a while. But I say, look at me now, and that's what I always tell people, like, just you never know what you can be if you can just allow yourself to be.
I really love that the whole takeaway that pointed out to me is, instead of talking to the 30% as like, you guys succeeded, good job, let's talk to the 70% and say, hey, it's okay. This is going to happen. Let's just keep going. What's next? We got to keep moving. And so I think that's such a great piece of advice, because like you said, no one wants to feel like they failed right out of the gate. Like, well, that's it. I'm done. Like 25 years old, 30 years old, 70 more years of life to go, but I've already failed. It's a learning opportunity, and I'm glad to hear that you felt like you've learned. It sounds like the hard way, unfortunately, but now let's help these younger people come up and learn easier, maybe learn a little bit from you and from other people who are sharing and being vulnerable and talking about these things, and being able to say, it's okay if you go broke. It's okay if you fail. Guess what? This is a tough situation. It's never going to be perfectly smooth and easy. You got to put the work in, you got to put the time in, but it is overcomable, and you will be able to get to somewhere where you like to do something if you are exploring who you are and doing all these things that you were able to do. So I really appreciate that advice. And I just want to see if there's anything else that you feel like from your journey, someone should be like, this is the most important thing that I did for building a business and entrepreneurship. Anything you want to share with our audience as we wrap up here, that, if they take away your story, what's one thing they should remember about Andre's journey?
All right. So if there's one thing I had to leave, is just never underestimate the power of you. Never underestimate the power of the human mind. I'm telling you, this human mind that we have is literally the most awesome, amazing thing once you understand the laws around it and how to operate it correctly. It's the most amazing thing that has ever been created in all creation. I'm so serious. If you can understand how to use what you have, your mental faculties, if you can get out of quote unquote, if you can change, I like saying it like this, the more you grind your mind, the less you have to grind your behind. All right. So like,
yes.
Because seriously, we've been taught as athletes, man, go out there and grind and go get it and go work yourself and go wake up at 3 a.m. and go to sleep at 2 a.m. and all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, once I started figuring out how this works, and once I realized, and I've studied I've studied the Andrew Carnegies, I've studied the John Rockefellers, I've studied the Floyd Mayweathers, I've studied all the past greats, the Mansa Musas, I've studied the Genghis Khans, I've studied all of them, and all of them thought the same way. That's the reason that they were great. And it wasn't because they outworked physically everybody, but they outworked mentally everybody. And so that's the thing. I would encourage you to pick up on your mind grind so that you won't have to grind your behind so much.
I love it. And it's catchy, so I'll remember it. I like the grind your mind, not your behind. That's awesome. Well, Andre, last question is just, what's coming up for Beyond the Game Network, where can they learn more about what you guys are doing, and best place to stay in touch with you and in your journey.
Yeah, so for me personally, best place is always Instagram. I'm always on IG. So if you shoot me a DM, I'll definitely hit everybody back. That's just what I do. With Beyond the Game, I'm just excited about a lot about how we're working with our investment companies right now. So we're giving athletes a lot of cool opportunities within our investment portfolio, which is good because we don't really ask our athletes to invest. We just ask them to invest their influence, so to speak. And so there's some stuff that's coming out through that. You can always check us out on our website on thebtgnetwork.com. And that, I run that site and all that stuff. So, but yeah, everything that you want to learn about me, I'm right here, baby. So just check me out on IG.
Awesome. Well, Andre, thank you so much for taking a time out with us. I loved catching up, hearing about everything you're doing with Beyond the Game. And like he said, everybody, go follow. Make sure you hire him if you want to know all these exciting laws that he's learned that you need to know, right? Go get some speaker plugs in here. And yeah, thank you again for taking the time to be here, Andre. This was a blast.
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting. You have been phenomenal.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Andre. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.